Hello and welcome to today's video. So this time we will be taking a look through Pan's X200 up to X350. Now this is a particularly decent lot of books here with some absolute key Pan publications in, including we've got the very first and probably the most valuable Pan book, the original printing of On Her Majesty's Secret Service. We get the first paperback edition of A Clockwork Orange, long before Penguin got hold of it. And I've even got a signed Colin Wilson book as well. Plus, there's a stack, and I mean a stack, of James Bond paperbacks that were re-released during this period. So an absolutely fantastic selection of books today. So sit back, relax, and let's get to it. Okay then, so we start off with our numbering, and it starts with X201, 201, and also starts off what is going to be a lot of James Bond books today, because in this particular run between X201 and 350, they published a lot of James Bond. So pop this into date perspective. This is 1963, and this was the first Pan edition of Thunderball. Like a lot of the James Bond books, I do tend to have multiple copies of them and variants. So this, for example, these are both first editions, but this one's got a little 3 and 6 sticker on, and that's got a 3 and 6 price on. So whether the during the print run of the first edition they just changed the cover or spotted that they hadn't put a price on, not really sure, but that's why I've got a couple of versions of that. Same number, X201, but it's the later film tie-in. So many people say that the Bond books themselves pretty much carried Pan and enabled them to really keep the list. Well, maybe publish some stuff that perhaps was a little bit borderline and they may not have taken the risk, but they had such great sales of the Bond books that they were able to afford to. So once again, this is a little bit of a variant. It's got the 3 and 6, and it's got a 60-cent export copy, but the same cover. This particular one, so this was the first movie tie-in edition, which is dated the 14th. So if you have a look inside there, it has got, right on the little list of printings, the 14th edition, 14th printing was the reset edition, and that's the one that you're looking for. I believe that is the first movie tie-in edition, and some copies of it came with this little, they call it the Domino Letter. So Domino was obviously one of the characters from there, and basically it's just referring to, it's like a letter to Bond from Domino, and it says, by the way, check out pages 152 to 155. Now this original Domino Letter I have seen sell for upwards of £1,000, but I just bought a facsimile one which someone had produced, and it cost me like £1. So I've just got that facsimile one in there with my sort of original copy. And this one, I believe, is not the reset edition. It's the one before the first reset edition, but it is also the export copy. So it's quite nice, that. And as I said, there's a lot of James Bond in today's videos. X204 then is Ruined City by Neville Shute. Big Pan author. X206, so Colditz the German story. So Reinhold Eggers was, I believe, the commandant of Colditz, and he himself was keeping his own notes, and he kept the Colditz Museum. Really good that he did that. So records of everyone's escapes and photos and their actual escape memorabilia he kept a hold of, and formed the Colditz Museum. But yeah, that's his version of events. And I guess Pan themselves, who'd had a massive success with Pat Reed's The Colditz Story, were just looking at any other Colditz sort of related escape books, and I think they did about 6 in total. This is a later copy of The Dam Busters, Paul Brickell, obviously author of the other big seller, The Great Escape, which that was published by Faber originally, not a Pan one. Carter Dickson, Department of Queer Complaints. Nice one. That looks like a Is that? Yeah, WFP, W. Francis Phillips, that one of his early composition ones, which he would do. So he'd like have a gun, the necklace, a few pound notes, and a paper opener. He was that was how his early covers started. They were quite sort of abstract, as it were, and he put the pieces together in a montage style. 210 is Mr. Moses, Max Cato, an irrelevant new novel of high comedy, danger and excitement by the best-selling author of The Melody of Sex, which I don't think I've seen. Mr. Moses. 211, X211. Oh, it's one of those medical ones. Look, he's putting on his gloves, ready for surgery. His Son and Heir. An intimate and shocking novel of conflict behind the scenes in a great hospital. Dramatic. Stark. Okay, if you say so. X213, had this one a long time. Death Comes as an End. Agatha Christie. I really like the Egyptian motif on this one. Don't know who put that one together. It may not have even come from an artist. It may have been done in the art department, possibly. 214. Man with a Tin Trumpet, Frederick Mullally, by the author of Dance Macabre. So we saw that one in the last video, and that also had like a photograph cover, didn't it? Yeah. Just slide them over there. Start another pile. X219, The Case of the Nervous Accomplice, Earl Stanley Gardner. This is a later Peff one. He was starting to wind down his panned work, I believe, by now, but it is signed by Peff. Certainly not his usual style, but maybe that was the instruction to do them more in this sort of style, which is a shame, isn't it? Because he was so good at his figures. X220, The Doctor is Sick, by Anthony Burgess. Obviously the writer of A Clockwork Orange, which we'll see a little bit later. So at this point, Pan were the Burgess publishers in paperback. And that's worth noting, I think. So X225 then is Heatwave in Berlin. Down there, Cusack. Don't know much about that one. Don't really remember that at all. X225. 226 is History of Mr. Polly, H.G. Wells. So again, a famous book, but not one I've actually read, although I don't mind H.G. Wells. A bit of a warm copy, that one. X227 is a sci-fi, The Man Who Sold the World, Robert Heinlein. And this is 6 short Heinlein novels in this one, or novellas, should we say. Introduction by John W. Campbell. He was editor of Astounding for a little while. We've got 6 short stories. So this was originally published back in 1955 by Pan, and this is if you look again, it's the reprinted, reset edition from 1963. Really nice one, that. So they thought worthy of bringing that one back into print. X228 is My Friend Sandy by Jane Duncan. I have a friend called Sandy. I wonder how she's getting on. This one's always fun. X229, How I Made $2 million in the stock market. The deal-by-deal success story of a famous dancer turned financial wizard. Nicholas Darvas. Okay. And he did that in his spare time. It looks like an original get-rich-quick book. 230 then is Bethnal Green. Look at this. This is a nice early movie tie-in. Now filmed as A Place to Go, starring Rita Trishingham. There she is. Mike Cern. Bernard Lee. He was M in the Bond movies. That must be Mike Cern. I don't really know him. Bit of a tatty old copy, but, you know, nice to have, isn't it? Forgotten all about that one. So that was 230. And then 232 rather, is then the beginning of many Ian Fleming books. Now, obviously, we've covered the Bond books before, and I've got much more detailed videos coming on the Bond books, so I'm not going to dwell massively on them. But if a Bond book's been published and it's come out with a different cover, I do try and pick it up if I can. So that was X232, a Casino Royale. There's another version there, exactly the same number. This was for the non-Eon movie adaptation with David Niven in the role. But that was the film tie-in. Here's another later one. Still the same number, X232, but with the different jacket. Still very nice. Live and Let Die. This is X233. So these are all being reissued at this time because Bond mania was rampant. Bond was doing fantastic. Another version of Live and Let Die. Sand in the desert there, like just collecting a few pennies. Diamonds Are Forever. X235. Another version of Diamonds there. Really simplistic cover, but I think they do a really good job. Good stuff, that. X236 is From Russia with Love. I've been rewatching the Bond films recently and been trying to rank them in order. So I'm on to the Roger Moores now. But from the Connerys, I was really surprised to find that From Russia with Love has ended up being my most liked Connery, which I was so surprised at. I had no idea it was going to be that. Funny seeing it after having not watched them for a while. I think it was really interesting to find that. This is the movie adaptation of From Russia with Love, 236. Obviously, this is quite a lavish production. You remember that scene in the film where Bond gets filmed in bed, doesn't he, with the young lady, and they've done this like the film reel, as it were, the cine film footage. 237 is the movie cover for Dr. No. That one also came out as a great pan earlier on. A later adaptation of Dr. No again, this one with the spiderweb front cover, which I really like. And then we've got 238, which is the movie tie-in of Goldfinger. Great stuff. 239 is For Your Eyes Only. I've got a couple of copies of this one, probably different printings, but that's a much better example than this one, which has got quite a bit of spine robber. Got the date stamp there. That was 239. Then finally a non-Bond book, 248, Master Stories of the 20th Century. This is a pan original. I see there's one. I see it's selected by Herbert Van Thal. You'll recognise his name, of course, from the Pan Book Horror Stories as the main editor. It's got some good names in there, like P.G. Wodehouse, C.S. Forrester, D.H. Lawrence, Somerset Maugham, Aldous Huxley, Saki. So that's quite a nice little compilation. 251 then is Rue McGodden, China Court. The spellbinding bestseller from the author of The Green Age Summer. A Green Gage Summer, I should say. 258, an Earl Stanley Gardner, covered by Sheldon, clearly marked there. The Case of the Sunbather's Diary. A Perry Mason mystery. Once again, that's got that big thumb fingerprint on, which seems to be like a little trademark of some of these Earl Stanley Gardner books of this period. 259 then is The Exile by Pearl S. Buck. The memorable story of an indomitable woman in a strange land. Great jacket on that one. A shame it's not a better copy, but very, very detailed. Don't know the artist. I wonder if it's a Hans Helwig. It might be. It might be. That was 259. So X271 then is my favourites in suspense, Alfred Hitchcock. Really interesting, these. He lent his name to so many of these anthologies. I mean, I don't know how many there are, but I wouldn't be at all surprised if someone said, well, there's 50. I know they weren't all published in the UK, but there was an awful lot in America. And apparently, you know, quite often he does a little introduction. Not sure if he does it in this one. Yeah, preface with his signature there. And apparently he used these sort of little short stories. Some of them he would pull out and make into the Alfred Hitchcock TV show, which was a bit like a Twilight Zone affair, a little half-hour episode. And some of them are excellent. Excellent. If you ever catch the Alfred Hitchcock show, they're good stuff. Number 279 then is The Overlanders, Gary Hogg. Indomitable explorers who brave unknown horrors to open up the awesome continent of Australia. There we are. Now, 281 then is The Sands of Mars, Arthur C. Clarke. Another cover by W. Francis Phillips. I certainly don't mind Arthur C. Clarke, and I read pretty much everything when I was growing up. I feel today he has stood up the test of time much better than, say, somebody like Isaac Asimov, who I think is really, really dated. So I saw a few of these last time, covered by Oval. The Intrigues of Caroline Cherie. Yeah, we saw a few of those last time round. X294 then. Arthur Upfield. Boney and the White Savage. Boney at his best on a tense hunt for a murderer. There he is. And our next one is actually still in a little sort of comic bag, so we'll get this one out. I kept him protected. So it's my copy of Adrift in Soho. So I've had this one for a long, long time, since I was a youngster. I started collecting pans probably when I was about, when I was about 16 or 17. I already had all the James Bond ones by then, but I'd started picking up books by other authors. And back in, I believe it was about 1994, I did a book signing and talk session with Colin Wilson. And he talked for about an hour, and it was absolutely fascinating. I got to say, it was just superb. And I took along Adrift in Soho, Ritual in the Dark, and the Encyclopedia of Murder. I didn't have The Outsider at the time, and got Colin to sign all three for me. And he was such a great chap. The one thing I remember from that, I think was really interesting, was it was about people who would struggle to get to sleep, and then they get more anxious because they weren't getting to sleep, and it was possibly I'll put it back in the bag, and they were possibly getting more het up because they weren't getting to sleep. So he said you just got to have this sort of mindset of not to worry about it, if you know what I mean. So literally just don't worry about not falling asleep. Just read and read until you do drop off to sleep. So I thought that was like really good advice. Excellent. Very interesting chap was Colin Wilson. 303, Hilary Wall, The Night It Rained. One of those ones, I don't particularly like these nowadays, where they've got a pair of handcuffs and they've just got that very small miniature illustration in the middle. I think that's a real cop-out, those. But maybe they were trying to cut back on the artist's budget. I don't know. 307, I Was Cicero. One of the strangest spy stories of the last, or indeed of any war. I guess that's supposed to be a keyhole, isn't it? Someone shooting through a keyhole there. This looks like a true life 60s spy effort by the look of it. X308 then is The House of 10,000 Pleasures, a modern study of the geisha and of the streetwalker of Japan. Well, thankfully not illustrated. This is a clean channel, you know. 309 is another Perry Mason. The Case of the Gilded Lily. Starting to see the odd photograph creep in now, aren't we? More so than the artwork covers. But this is just a sign of the time. So let's check the date on this one. 1964, this particular edition was published. There's a list of some of the other Earl Stanleys. Quite a few by this time have been published by Pan. And he's probably a good candidate for us to take a look at all the Earl Stanley Gardeners that Pan published. 311, The Implacable Hunter, Gerald Kirsch. Nice little jacket there. I'm not sure what that one's about, but it does look quite interesting. Looks like it's sort of in Roman times. 313 is Violetta and Duffield love story. 317 is another Agatha Christie, Death in the Clouds. Artist, I can't... Oh, yes, I was just going to say, W. Francis Phillips again. I was going to say I can't see a signature because my thumb was in front of it, but I would guess it was him, and yes, it was. Oh, that's quite nice. Look at that. It's got a little... it's got a little map of the action. Well, it's on a plane, isn't it, this one? So a map of the seating plan and where they're all sat. That's quite cool. That reminds me of an old Dell map back. Yeah, I quite like that. That's brilliant. So that was 317. 318 is a Raphael Sabatini. So we've seen a few of his over the course of these videos. So covered by Taylor. Fortunes of Captain Blood. Apparently these have had a bit of a revival of late, and the Captain Blood books are still quite sought after. Look at those superb jackets there. Those 50s ones, they certainly were fantastic. 320, another Neville Shute, Most Secret. Wartime story, that one. So this is a real classic. Look at this, 321. This is the first ever paperback publication of Anthony Burgess's A Clockwork Orange. The Daily Telegraph says, sharp, horrific, uncompromising, with a sick humour all of its own. A novel of the near future by one of the most talented and imaginative writers of today. So it's a shame, but Clockwork Orange just didn't take off, and it's hardly a cover to set the world alight. You sort of see the group there, but it's nowhere near as iconic as David Pelham's classic Penguin jacket, which came in about 1970. So I guess Pan must have had the rights to this one for 5 years or so, something like that. So yeah, 1964 this was published. Hardback was in 62. Only just 2 other books listed by Burgess in the front there. And there we are. So obviously the first Penguin edition adds the dictionary for the Droobs' language at the back, and that's not present in this one. So it pretty much is a very much bog standard release of a book at that time. I've actually had 2 copies of this, and this is the better copy. I do believe it's pretty scarce, particularly in a first edition. You'll probably end up paying upwards of £25 for one of those in a nice condition copy, maybe even a little bit more. The first Penguin edition with the Pelham cover is equally that sort of money. 324 then, Donald Mackenzie, The Genial Stranger. Owen, so that would have been Pat Owen who did the cover to that. Really nice, actually. It's got the sort of, that looks like it's raining on the front jacket. Yeah, pretty nice, that one. 325 then is The Bomb in the Attic by Jacob Haye. I actually own the original artwork for this one by Hans Hellwig, which I've filmed for the channel fairly recently. It says it's an American comedy novel. I think it plays on the fact of sort of paranoia over the threat of nuclear Armageddon. 327 is a David Attenborough. I love these early David Attenboroughs. They all were published by Pan. It was that he'd already been around, or rather he was already established on TV through the Zoo Quest series, which was his. And I think they're fantastic. They're really, really good. Always regret not getting his signature. Once again, I did a book event with David Attenborough, and it was just besieged. Absolutely incredible. X328 is Georgette Heyer, Arabella, one of her Regency novels. I never read them. They're more aimed at the ladies, those, but not to say she wasn't a great accomplished writer, because she was. 230 is another Perry Mason, The Case of the Demure Defendant. Looks like a bit of the 007s there. The 15th Perry Mason, that one. Actually says the 15th on the back, which is quite good. I guess if you were going to read them, if it was me reading them, I'd be reading them in order. That's for darn certain. 331 is the 5th Pan Book of Horror Stories. I got a terrible copy of this. It's right up there on my list of ones to upgrade. So once I've got a better copy, I'll put this one in my set of Pan Book of Horror Stories, which I've got as a reading set. Like I've got a set of the Bonds as a reading set. And then, because I just loved these when I was growing up, and even to this day I dip in and out of certain ones that I particularly enjoyed. The problem is they're super collectible, these books of horror stories, and the prices have really gone up. So really nice copies are going for like £10 to £15 a book now, which is just blooming crazy. But, you know, they do turn up. They were printed in big runs, so I'm not too worried. I'm sure I'll get a nice one eventually. 344 then, another Hitchcock anthology, Stories for Late at Night, Part 1. Glenn Stewart did the cover for that one with Hitchcock as the head of the bat. I'm sure he loved that. Stories for Late at Night. There we are. There's quite a few short stories in there and one novelette. Good stuff. I used to pick those up as a youngster. I love the short story format. 346, The Heart of the Storm, David Beatty. I don't know much about that one. Now this next one, 350, this is the rarest, not the rarest, because that's not right. This is the most expensive Pan book of all. This is the one that's worth the most money. And it's the first edition of On Her Majesty's Secret Service. So I've got a couple of copies in my collection at present. This is the original first edition, and you'll notice it's got 60 cents there. And that's because editions 1 to 3 were exported to Australia and New Zealand. So there it is. So it shows it is the first edition. So the first 3 are, pretty much in demand. You can spot the earlier editions because the cover of the later ones is the same, but it's got this blue, On Her Majesty's Secret Service, the title is in blue. Now, later ones, from editions 4 to 6, I believe, the writing goes into the green. So let's see what printing this is. This is the 5th, but I believe it's printings 4, 5 and 6. It's got the green writing. So it's just a very, very scarce book, and scarcer in the UK because all those copies were exported. But if you ever come across that and you see that in a bookshop, just like that, do check, because editions 1, 2 and 3 are all expensive. So number 1, it goes for about 350 or more, depending on condition. The second and third printings I don't think are worth much more than £30 each, but I've seen some people even asking £200 for a second printing, which I think is just ridiculous. But yeah, do keep an eye out for On Her Majesty's, because it's a real rarity.
So there you go. Hope you enjoyed that latest look through these Pam paperbacks. Don't forget, next month I'll have another 100, 150 or so for us to go through. So until then, if you've enjoyed today's video, do please give it a thumbs up. Do please consider subscribing for regular vintage paperback content, and I shall look forward to seeing you again very soon. Bye.